That was the sound of the Bronx in Cooperstown today, as just earlier, the Yankees, Derek Jeter. You know, that guy that happened to win 5 World Series, that guy who was so down to earth with every Yankee fan and on the team. He was a winner, but he was humble. Yeah, that guy. He is now a Hall of Famer. And let me tell you, for anybody who's been in New York the last 30 years, you know what big a moment this is. It's like we have seen the chapter close, and it'll go on in different ways now that Jeter's a Hall of Famer. But we have seen the baseball performance chapter close on a man that started in 1995, of course, in 96. Hits his first homer in Cleveland. I mean, there were so many things surrounding Derek Jeter that were highlighted as a rookie. And then he won the rings. And then he got, of course, 10 years ago, I didn't realize this, but 10 years ago, off David Price, his 3,000 hit at the new stadium, where, of course, in 2014 But this today is a New York celebration. This, to me, is not just the cheers in the Bronx. This is everything in New York City up in Cooperstown today. Because, see, God had a plan for Derek Jeter, and it was to be this. And I think he stuck to the plan as well as he could. I'm getting into that because I talked about on my website, legislation cannot dictate God's plans. We'll get to that in a bit. But this was awesome to see. He, of course, talked about what it was like to be under the tutelage of George Steinbrenner, of Mr. Joe Torre, Mr. T, icons that we have all known the last 30 years. Patrick Ewing was up there. Ahmad Rashad was up there. But what I love most about this speech today is that he really stuck to his roots, his family, his mom, his dad, his sister, now his wife and kids. And it really didn't feel like this out of this world Hall of Fame shortstop. I don't think he made it about himself. He made it about his time with the Yankees. He made it about his era. He made it about the kids coming up and playing today. He made it about his family and his Yankee family. And how can you not feel something when he talks about the core four? Jeter, Posada, Bernie Williams, and then, of course, Hall of Famer Mariano Rivera sitting right behind him as his teammate becomes the newest member. This felt like an all New York Hall of Fame induction, and it doesn't always. But this today felt like New York City was represented, did represent in Cooperstown. And how, as a New Yorker today, can you not feel a source of pride in Cooperstown? I don't care if you're a Met fan or not. As a New Yorker, this is a New York City moment. This is a Canyon of Heroes moment. You know, there were a couple of times when Jeter got banged up, and I'm going to talk about that because if we all remember 2003, Eric Almonte had a take over at short because Jeter got injured on a slide on opening night in Toronto. Hurt his shoulder. Many were worried, what is the future of Derek Jeter? Well, he came back and he helped will the Yanks to a big Game 7 win against the Red Sox in the ALCS, capped off by Aaron Boone, of course. But he was there in 2003, the 100th anniversary of the Yankees. But then, in 2004, he dove head first into the stands. And of course, with the netting now, we'll never see this. But he overcame that injury that he had happened while he was diving in the stands. Face all banged up. Had to come out. But that was the type of player Derek Jeter was. But I remember in Shea Stadium, we walk in, and I kind of remember walking along the left field line and hearing the crack of the bat. Derek Jeter leadoff home run in the World Series against the Mets. That was 21 years ago. Had COVID not affected us, we would have been celebrating everything in 20 years. But let me tell you something. This 20-year anniversary coming up, and this week that matters for New York City honoring 9/11, I think Jeter's induction couldn't happen at a better time. Because who was there in 2001 to get this city through the grief, the pain, the anger, the confusion, the death? Well, it was Mr. November, as Michael Kay would call him on the radio. He hit the first ever November home run in the World Series. A 2001 World Series that didn't go the Yankees' way, but sure as heck had New York City memories written all over it. And Derek Jeter was no exception. So, on a week that we honor those lost in 9/11, those first responders who survived or died that day and after. A man that uplifted those first responders that lived, those firefighters, those cops, the city. It was Mr. Derek Jeter. He was a big part of it. Even when the Yanks were walking off the other couple nights, he was jumping around. That number 2 was very much there. Oh, and how can I forget? This is going to be the 20th anniversary of the flip in Oakland. You remember it? Jeter coming across the first base foul line to intercept what would have been a maybe not successful throw to home plate. Cuts it off, flips back in the lead to Posada, who tags Jeremy Giambi. So this 20th anniversary, to kick it off midweek with this induction, though not in New York City, but in Cooperstown, it feels more than right. It's why we can't outrun God. We cannot outrun God. God has plans. We were all frustrated that last year's induction ceremony didn't happen. But you know what? I believe God made this happen this week alone. There's a reason why he put it the week of September 11th. Because what a way to boost the city's spirits, much like the Yankees boosted our spirits. Though not a winner in 2001, they boosted the spirits of the city 100%. And 20 years later, that spirit booster, Derek Jeter, becomes part of the storyline once again in New York City. Let's be honest here. When Derek Jeter bought Miami, the Marlins, everybody kind of thought he was going to go off the radar. And he kind of did. Kind of flew under the radar, kind of under the surface. I mean, he wasn't really as affiliated with the Yankees. But in grand fashion, today, September 8th, 2021, Derek Jeter and the Yankees owned Cooperstown. And that's pretty damn cool. And that's pretty awesome. By the way, tomorrow on Can You Dig Sports, I'm going to air a conversation I had with one Rick Cerrone. He was the PR director at the time of all that craziness with the Yankees in the 90s and 2000s. So you don't want to miss that. Had him here on the Sports Hours portion of it. But yes, I believe God has plans for this. That this induction didn't come during the week of 9/11 for no reason. So, while we think it's weird it came midweek, the tone is set now for a very special week where we it's never special to honor tragedy at all, or commemorate it, or remember it. But this has a special feel to it. To have Derek Jeter on a Wednesday before 9/11, before the 20th anniversary of his flip in Oakland, come back into the fold in New York City as the main character, if you will. Huge. Absolutely epic. I'll have more to say about this tomorrow on the Sports Hour with Alex Garrett and Kenny Dick Sports. Maybe get some highlights for you as well from Cooperstown. But today, the captain, Derek Jeter, the man who even was so humble he wanted Bob Shepard's introduction every time. And that 20-plus year career culminates with this. Enjoy today in New York City. This is your day. And maybe, just maybe, the baseball gods will be on our side tonight against Toronto.